Good evening once again. I am Stephanie Ruhle, and check your calendar because it is time for the midweek nightcap. We are 264 days away from the midterms, and Capitol Hill remains consumed by what has been revealed in the Epstein files, as well as by the Justice Department's handling or mishandling of them, which brings us to Attorney General Pam Bondi. Today, she testified before the House Judiciary Committee. This was her first appearance before the panel since the DOJ said it released all documents related to Epstein and co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell. Many lawmakers hope to hear some new details on the Justice Department's investigation into Epstein, but it was no surprise. The hearing quickly turned explosive, with Bondi on the attack, defending her leadership at the DOJ, and again, praising President Trump. Watch this.
To the survivors in the room, if you are willing, please stand. And if you are willing, please raise your hands if you have still not been able to meet with this Department of Justice. Will you turn to them now and apologize for what your Department of Justice has put them through with the absolutely unacceptable release of the Epstein files and their information?
Merrick Garland sat in this chair twice.
Attorney General Bondi.
No, can I finish my answer?
No, I'm going to reclaim my time because I asked you a specific question.
How many of Epstein's co-conspirators have you indicted? How many perpetrators are you even investigating?
First, you showed it. I find it.
How many have you indicted?
Excuse me. I'm going to answer the question.
Answer my question.
No, I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer the question.
No, you're going to answer the question the way I asked it.
They don't like the answer, Chairman.
My time.
Because it's honest.
Reclaiming
so he asked a 4-minute question.
Restore 45 seconds, Mr. Nadler, please, Mr. Chairman.
Answer.
You can let her filibuster all day long, but not on our watch. Not on our time. No way. And I told you about that, Attorney General, before you started.
You don't tell me.
Yeah, I did tell you because we saw what you did in the Senate.
You're a lawyer, not even a lawyer. Wexner's name was added back.
Within 40 minutes of me catching you red-handed.
Red-handed. There was one redaction out of over
listed as a co-conspirator.
And we invited you in. This guy has Trump derangement syndrome.
Will you commit to publicly providing the unredacted version of this so that the American people can understand the extent of Donald Trump's lies about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein?
You're about as good of a lawyer today as you were when you tried to impeach President Trump in 2016. Have you apologized for that in 2019? The Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing. You're a great stock trader, as I hear, Raskin. The Dow is over 50,000 right now. The S&P at almost 7,000. And the NASDAQ smashing records. That's what we should be talking about.
Let's bring in our nightcap. Evan McNorris-Santoro is here, reporter for Notice. Pablo Torre, ESPN analyst and host of the Meadowlark Media's Pablo Torre Finds Out podcast. My friend and colleague Steve Leisman, CNBC senior economics reporter, and Josh Tarangill is here. He has the current cover story for The Atlantic. It is all about AI, and it will terrify you. Josh, let's turn to you first. For those of us who remember Pam Bondi's performance before the Senate back in October, this was deja vu.
Yeah, I mean, look, my first takeaway is she's real good at being Pam Bondi. Like, I know it's outrageous. I know that she shows up and is wildly insincere. She has no intent of really doing anything. But she has one viewer, and she knows what he wants to see. And so she delivered on that one thing. And listen, you can get a lot accomplished in life when you have no shame. And she has no shame. And so to sit there under oath and not answer questions, but to make this performance work, she got what she wanted to out of that day.
But Trump campaigned on the Epstein files, and it was like this time last year, she was out there saying, I'm reviewing the client list.
Yeah. Thomas Massie is the guy that I cannot help but like smile at when I see him pop up in that video. Because this dude is like, talk about like an economic indicator. He's like, I see how this is going to go. I see what Pam Bondi is doing, who she is playing to, and I'm going to be the guy who says this is crazy as a Republican.
a real Republican.
It's a remarkable thing to have that lane so wide open, and the fact that it's not crowded is why Thomas Massie can team up with Ro Khanna and do this Epstein Transparency Act and be this truth teller that will pay dividends politically. Like, we know how this is going to end. That is horrific. The theater of this is so horrific. The tape of it is so good. I would have watched an hour more of that. But we know how it's going to end, and Thomas Massie's like, yeah, I'm going to sell on this, and I'm going to reap the benefits personally.
But isn't that the absurdity of only performing for a party of one? She's the Attorney General of the United States of America, and she's out there touting stock market performance, calling Donald Trump the most transparent president ever. He might like that, but he's losing in popularity by the day.
Pam Bondi's performance in front of Congress is 100% emblematic of the constitutional crisis this country is going through. I am old enough, Pablo may even be old enough to remember, when secretaries, attorneys general sat before Congress and treated both sides with respect. And the reason they treated them with respect is because they would eventually going to need Congress for things like funding, for things that Congress would have to approve of. But when you have an executive branch that doesn't go to Congress for funding, that doesn't need any approval from Congress, Pam Bondi can act that way. So the reason she's able to do this and treat the Democrats this way, even in some senses treat Republicans this way, is because we're having a constitutional crisis in this country where Congress has no power at all over the executive branch.
Do you think the DOJ's handling of the Epstein files will have consequences come the midterms?
Well, I'll tell you, we have a story coming out in Notice tomorrow about Democrats and how they are figuring out how to talk about this on the campaign trail. It's going to be a great story. It talks about John Ossoff, who's running for Senate in Georgia, has figured out how to weaponize this Epstein thing against the Trump people. This is a problem. The problem for Bondi is that she walked into that hearing on defense and she walked out of that hearing on defense. This did not turn the story at all for these people. And this is what Trump has to deal with, is he has to figure out a way to make this story no longer about how his Justice Department kind of messed this up from the very beginning and turned off a lot of its own supporters with this, with this topic.
She did say, though, that there are pending investigations about people who may have conspired with Epstein. Do you buy that? Like, do you actually think there's going to be some follow-up there from the DOJ?
I don't know for sure. Obviously, we don't know what the DOJ is going to do. I do think that there is some actual hunger for some more investigations, for example, of like the Clintons, who are going to be talking to the House Oversight Committee very soon. Like this thing began, the idea of this thing in the beginning was that it was going to take down political enemies. First it was political enemies of the right. Now there's some ideas to take down political enemies of the left. It's a very difficult story, like in terms of the actual legalities of it, like what they can prove, what they can actually, do to people. But this problem of it has turned now to become a political problem for Trump. He has not figured out a way to weasel out of that, or to wiggle out of that. It just keeps flopping around.
It's because the dog caught the car. Like, the deep state are the people who said there's a deep state. And, not to mix too many metaphors here, but the dog caught the car, and the car is full of Epstein files. And it's like, oh, no, we never wanted to catch this. This is a horrible mistake. And now Dan Bongino is on Fox News talking as if he didn't see it. I mean, it's all of it from the top down is in some ways complicated, but in other ways just obvious. We know what's happening.
And Epstein, the most horrible man in modern history, may be the person bringing us together. One person that did surprise me today was Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan always plays the role of a
Yeah, I think, as Pablo said about leading indicators, that's, look, you got to watch which way the wind blows, and there are a couple people who are really good politicians, and when they begin to just retreat a tiny bit, that's worth taking notice of. So, yeah, I saw that too. I was like, oh, wow, that's strange. He's listening. He's enforcing rules. He's not using his chairmanship as an opportunity to berate them. Like, I would be a little bit worried about that if I was Trump.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I'm not following this piece by piece. I feel a little bit like, as an outside observer, the zone is flooded with so much information that it's hard to focus. If the original hope of the Democrats was to pin the Epstein files on Trump, is that there? Is that out there definitively in a way you can say, this guy did all of these terrible things, and it's proven right there. I just don't. I read a lot of stuff,
There's not
and half of the stuff is AI generated, so I don't know what's real.
There's not a smoking gun that said Donald Trump did X or Y.
Point,
now, one could argue his name is in there a million times. Listen, just because his name is in there doesn't necessarily mean anything. And we all know that Donald Trump doesn't use email. However, he's the president of the United States. He campaigned on releasing these files, and he is going everywhere, nowhere, and around in circles to ensure that the American people don't see this. So the question is, why, Mr. President?
But that was the question before.
No, so I think there is a lot more to find out in terms of what else is in there.
And will he let us?
But the cover-up, which is actively happening in front of us, is what is so suspicious. Like, if it's not something you're worried about, why are you behaving like it is the biggest thing you're worried about?
You know,
the cover up.
But there is one difference, which is we now, before you would say there's an Epstein file and it was an abstraction.
Yeah.
Now we know the number of documents. And so you can actually work backward from an outcome. And so when people say they released X, they're very good at the math of saying, well, that's not even close to Y, which is the entire file.
damaging to a lot of people, right? Elon Musk has been completely obliterated, really sort of credibility-wise, not that he had that much to stand on for a while now, by this, right? A guy who's like, I would nothing to do with this. I'm not in this at all. And then there he is right in there, right? Howard Lutnick, right? A guy from the Trump administration. They've got a real problem with this guy. This is a real political liability, what he said versus what is in the documents.
And we don't know that he did anything inappropriate, but we do know that within the last 6 months, he looked straight in the camera and lied to the American people, and he's a cabinet member.
But I've said this a bunch of times to people that I think that birthday book revelation is one of the biggest things I've ever seen happen in American politics. And this is a thing that it's just because we talk so much about, no, there's one document that's going to prove everything. A lot of things have been proven. And you talk about folks are sort of like not seeing everything here. Right? There's a lot of stuff happening. Right. I think that's true. But the story arc is put together is not good for the people who are in power. I think that's
agreed. But they're resigning all over the world. But not here.
Well, hold on. But what we're seeing, though, are the contours of a social network in which all of them were friends in this way that is now documented. Trump may not have committed a crime, and Lord knows you haven't seen all the files, but he's actively friends, writing, drawing illustrations at these events.
Here's what I know. I'm going to keep covering the jobs report because that's a safer place for me to be.
That's not going to go viral stuff.
I don't want it to go viral.
But the obviousness, right? So why is Jon Ossoff now this sort of eminent political figure? It's because he's saying this term I've also heard Ro Khanna say, the Epstein class. Right. You're not running against a party, you're running against a network of people that embody the thing that Trump actually ran against when he won.
And isn't that almost not more consequential than one big explosive document, but this idea that the richest, most powerful people in the world, in every single industry, in every vertical, operate with totally different rules and immunity when it comes to wrongdoing.
Yeah, and the reason that impacts politics is that, we all look back at Dan Quayle and laugh, but Dan Quayle coined a phrase that stuck with us politically for 40 years.
No one is going to remember what that
is. The mind is a terrible thing.
No, it was the cultural elite. He said, I am proud to be scorned by the cultural elite. And that defined the opponent for Republicans for years. Well, what if it turns out you are the cultural elite? And so part of what the Epstein file flips is like, to your point, they're all down there. They're all trading favors. They're all easily glad-handed by a guy who's actually not terribly charming, but has access to money and can get you to meet, introduce you to this. You want to meet the college counselor. And so they're all a part of it. And so that's the cultural piece that I think you're talking about. Is like, that is stronger than whatever may else emerge and whatever million pages come, is that, no, that was the lie. And it's really tough to come back from that.
And X's and O's wise, the reason why this is falling on Trump, because there's plenty of Democrats who are in these files and are getting in trouble all the time, right? Democratic figures, Democratic thinkers. The X's and O's are, if the president had not called this a hoax, and if Pam Bondi had not said there's nothing in this, right, this is all over with, they wouldn't be in this position. They were elected. They came in on this like, this is our story. We own this. We're going to release all this stuff, and we're going to take down our opposition. And then they said, actually, there's nothing in here. Don't worry about it. And this has led to a problem where now they are sort of hoist on their own petardism.
I really like the prettiest young girl you had here last night, and that person's name's redacted.
Yeah, look, I interviewed the former Democratic Congressman Tom McMillan, three-time congressman who is in the files as a guy who was just friendly with Epstein. And you give someone the opportunity to say, what is this? Why were you here? And his response was symptomatic of, I think, a lot of responses, which is, I don't remember that, didn't happen, this is nothing. In reality, if the answer was from the start, I am horrified to learn that a guy I trusted with the most sensitive information about me as a friend was victimizing scores of young women. Well, that is something that I will never live down, and I will work the rest of my life to make that right. No one says that. They all say, "Oh, Jeff." Again, the financier. Like it's the joke. The joke is the real thing.
Leon Black, one of the most successful people on Wall Street ever, saying, "I just really needed that tax advice from that guy." I mean, are you?
But if it rains on the cultural elite, doesn't that break both ways equally against Democrats?
It does,
and
except Democrats didn't campaign on the fact that the Epstein files needed to be exposed because the bloodsuckers. Because remember, this is all going back to QAnon, which Evan reported on very, very well back when we worked together at Vice News. This is all from that same seed, which is you are the victim of an elite conspiracy. You are.
And there are very powerful Democrats getting hurt. Where's Larry Summers right now? Nowhere. Everybody is sticking around. Coming up later in the show, how Americans competing at the Olympics cannot seem to shake off the politics happening here at home. But first, right after the break, the president threatens to block the opening of a new bridge. It feels like every day we are asking this question: is this White House for sale? Right now, the best example of how business gets done during the presidency might lay between Detroit and Canada, as the New York Times has a new report breaking it all down. Here's what happened. So there's a bridge connecting Detroit and Windsor, Ontario. It's called the Ambassador Bridge, and it's owned by a billionaire named Matt Maroon. You don't know him. Right now, there's another bridge connecting the two cities, and it's being built. It's called the Gordie Howe Bridge. If that bridge opens, the Times notes, it's going to take away toll revenue from Maroon. Well, two officials briefed on the meeting who requested anonymity tell the Times that this big businessman met with, guess who? Howard Lutnick on Monday. And right after that meeting, Lutnick spoke with President Trump by phone about the matter. An official told the paper. Shortly after that, the president threatened to block the planned opening of the new bridge, saying this on social media: he will not allow the bridge to open until the U.S. is fully compensated for everything we have given them being Canada. The Commerce Department declined to comment, and a spokesman for Maroon's company didn't respond to a request for comment from the Times. So just to recap what happened really quick. Billionaire meets with White House official. Official talks to the president. The president makes a move that would help billionaire. Welcome to Trump 2.0. Our nightcap is still here. Steve, does this sum up what this term has been like for the most powerful business people with any piece of business in front of this White House?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we learned, what was it, about a week ago that the president, he approved sending chips to China for a $500 million investment from an Abu Dhabi sheikh. So that's what $500 million gets you. You look back in the history of this gentleman from Detroit. He is a longtime donor to the Republican Party, a big-time donor. In addition, he gave $200,000 sometime in the early 2010s to a Detroit City Council to try to kill this bridge quite a while ago. So it was that donation. Detroit Free Press wrote that story. And what I'm wondering about is what the schedule looks like. You get chips to Abu Dhabi for $500 million. I don't know what a bridge costs. There's 1,000 exemptions to the tariffs. I feel like it doesn't worry me, but I think that there is going to be a reckoning. Business is playing. The number one question I get is, where is business in this whole Trump thing? And I just point them to Friday. On Friday, the most racist tweet by a president in the history of the presidency was tweeted out by the president, and the Dow rose 1,200 points. And the answer to the question is, where is business? Is they're either making money or afraid they're not going to make money. And as far as I can tell, it looks like a lot of things are for sale from this White House, and all we are lacking is the schedule.
Damn. Is the biggest, clearest place we're seeing this with the tech giants, all with big AI businesses, tap dancing with this president and basically running a new frontier with no regulation?
Yeah, I mean, look, I find all of this to be the least surprising aspects of the Trump administration because it's the most obviously transactional, right? What do you want? What do I want? Can we work together to get what we both want? It's very clean. It's not been different since the day he showed up. So when you tell me it's a bridge today, it's like, well, of course it's a bridge today. And he calls up, not knowing anything about the history of the bridge, demanding that, why is it not?
Forgetting he endorsed it in 2017.
Forgetting that he endorsed it, forgetting that Michigan actually is a partner in the bridge.
And Canada paid for the whole thing.
It doesn't matter because he literally is about, well, wait, what's in it for me? Oh, great, I need this, you want that. And so, yeah, it's very easy. It's just a presidency all oriented around the VIG, right? Which is like, what's my price for this? Oh, this is what I want.
Okay, and so then to those who say, well, Donald Trump's a lame duck president, it doesn't feel like he's lame duck. Maybe he's lame duck in that he's not focused.
Candidate for Senate, Mike Rogers, that the Republicans want to win and think can win, has now had to come out and say, yeah, it's good that we don't have this new bridge opening all this new trade up into Michigan. Like, this is like if you are running their Michigan Republican campaign effort, this is the last thing you want to be talking about and doing. And the president is putting this on these guys. It's all part and parcel of what they're all having to deal with as the election gets closer and closer.
So is that the same as Trump putting the freeze on the Gateway Tunnels project here, which only helped Mikey Sherrill get elected in New Jersey? I don't think it helped their Republicans here at all. And they were in the same position trying to figure out some way to talk about it.
I just like that we're in the old-timey joke phase of corruption. Like, yeah, he has a bridge to sell you. That's actually a thing we're talking about. The part of the bridge story, though, that makes me laugh beyond just like the textbook sort of quid pro quo is it's one of these through lines that is so clear now, which is that it's one thing to be transactional where your side benefits. It's another thing to be transactional where only you do. And even like the Middle East foreign policy stuff, it was like, wow, Jared went in there and he's transactionally broke all the norms of diplomacy, but you know what? He made peace. Right? Like on some level, I'm like, okay, break the norms. There's an outcome that is good for some net sense. In this, it's a political grenade.
What worries me about it is if that's what's going on at the top, what's going on below the surface? What is happening at the undersecretary level? What is happening for any kind of permission?
You're not asking this rhetorically, are you?
Well, I was in Russia in 1994, and somebody said, "You see that minister over there?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "He's the dumbest minister in government." I said, "How do you know that?" He said, "Because he's been in government 2 years and he's still poor." and that was the government I covered for 6 years in Russia. And I'm afraid that if we see what's going on at the top, it is unaddressed. That you're right. It's a rhetorical question.
Okay, but won't this start to hurt Republicans politically, right? So if the K-shaped economy is making the rich richer and the poor poorer, so you've got Trump voters saying the economy is not working for me, and they're watching, they're right in their eyes, Trump enriching himself deal after deal, at some point they're going to say, uncle.
Yes, and that point will probably come with lots of pitchforks and bloodshed and like all the things that nobody really wants. And so to me, the issue around all this stuff is like, you know, you said, oh, well, he's sure not a lame duck, doesn't seem to be a lame duck. Well, number one, it'd be nice if someone in the party said, no, really, he will be a lame duck.
Right.
Like there is an aura of abstraction and menace around, well, what happens when this is over? I would be very curious what happens the day after the midterms, to see if any of this changes, to see if the Republicans are shellacked, whether people start to move away. Until there's evidence, nobody's
Okay, maybe there's evidence today, because tonight the House voted to overturn the president's tariffs on Canada. 6 Republicans joined the Democrats to pass this measure. That feels like at least some tide is turning.
Well, the big thing with that vote is that their White House could not figure out any way to stop it, right? The day before, they had tried to stop the rule from being passed and let it happen. And then once that, they couldn't make that happen. And then once it didn't happen, they sort of just tried to sort of staunch the bleeding as best they can. This is a thing that's sort of getting away from them because folks really need to have these economic numbers look a lot better to voters very, very quickly. These folks who are running for office, these politicians running for office, you talk to any Republican strategist, we talk to any Republican politician, we speak to a lot of them, and they will tell you, like, we need an economic story to tell.
But
and this is not an economic story, this story in Canada.
But I think Josh raises a really important question, which is I don't know that the midterms stop the grift.
No.
I don't see how they do, right? They can issue subpoenas and they can ignore the subpoenas and then you have these contempt hearings and then it goes on. I don't know that the midterms change this. So he may never be, in this context that you ask, a lame duck.
So one of the things that the Trump phenomenon has exposed that's really hard for everybody to wrap their heads around, it goes back to Pam Bondi, is like, actually, if there was a hole in the architecture of the United States, it was sincerity. The founders didn't quite know what to do about, like, well, how do we make sure that people trying to run our government are sincerely working on behalf of the people that have elected them? And that's basically the problem, is that when it's always about, well, you got to put my name on this bridge. Of course, that serves no one. And yet there it is. But when the fix gets in, right, when enough interests are behind it, you're stuck for a while. And we don't have that many elections. And we don't have a constitution that's easily amended. And so we found ourselves in this incredible gridlock, like psychological gridlock.
And we chose to find ourselves there because America voted for him again. We're going to take a break. When we come back, the president's aggressive immigration tactics have followed Team USA all the way to the Olympics in Italy, how the athletes are trying to balance. The immigration crackdown in Minnesota could end in just days. That is according to Governor Tim Walz, based on his talks with Trump officials. But more polling is showing that the crackdown is widely unpopular both in Minnesota and across the nation. And one Minnesotan who is speaking up is 54-year-old attorney Rich Ruhle. And this is my favorite part of curling. This 54-year-old attorney is also a member of America's Olympic curling team competing in Italy right now. He said that what is going on in Minnesota is wrong, and there are no shades of gray. This comes after the president called a U.S. Olympic skier a real loser for saying that he had mixed emotions about representing the U.S. That skier, Hunter Hess, responded by writing this. There is so much that is great about America, but there are always things that could be better. One of the many things that makes this country so amazing is that we have the right and the freedom to point that out. Our nightcap is still here. Pablo, it's hardly like this is the first time politics have entered the Olympic Games, but somehow the president is shocked like we've never seen it before.
Yeah, and I'll point out, this isn't exactly Tommy Smith and John Carlos in Mexico City, right? That's a pretty gentle book report that Olympian just read. The thing that I think about, though, is that Donald Trump's whole superpower, the through line in this whole show so far has been, his superpower used to be, he has his finger on the pulse of what is mainstream and popular and what the median average American really thinks. And over again, in Minnesota, with the Super Bowl halftime show, with this thing happening at the Olympics, you have people, the populist movement of normies, including a dude who does curling, being like, yeah, this is a bit much for us. And so what this is in the Olympics is a reflection of a fundamental, again, obvious reality that they are over their skis when it comes to making anything happen right now that is passably normal. That's why these people are speaking out. It's not because they're like radical leftists. There's a 54-year-old curler. And that guy who was like, I like a lot of things, but this one I don't like as much.
And their message is about, can't we be kinder, nicer, have more compassion, right? Like, they could create a boogeyman during the George Floyd protests because businesses were burning, things got violent. Here, Bad Bunny's message was, let's love more.
Yeah, look, I'm going to let you have Bad Bunny for a minute, but the Olympics to me, so I've covered a couple of Olympics, and I find the whole junta aspect of the IOC irredeemable. There's lots not to like about it. The one thing that always shines through at the Olympics is that we put on this little pageant about what every country is, right? Starting with the costumes, and you cannot escape it, right? And what you get is a world referendum on who you are at that moment. And so 1980, we all remember. This was America the underdog coming through at a moment for freedom, right? And we have these moments, and they help us define who we are in the culture. In 2002, I was in 2002. I was in Salt Lake City right after 9/11, and everybody was rooting for America. 2004, I was in Athens after the invasion of Iraq, and I have never seen a more hostile gymnasium than the Greek fans when the American basketball players walked out. So we experience the world and how they feel about us in a different way under the Olympic lights. And I think what you're seeing is very reasonable responses from American athletes who are suddenly abroad being asked to perform their Americanness.
I wonder, to speak of what Pablo is saying, is what's happening is a realization among even Trump supporters that this is the end result of the intolerance that they supported. It's dead people in the streets in Minnesota. It's detention centers in this country that is probably the most reprehensible development in this country, I think, in my lifetime. When you start reading about the conditions of immigrants in these detention centers, I cannot believe this is happening in America. And I think people are seeing these stories and they're saying, okay, we were kind of in favor of some immigration and closing the border, but this is not what we're about. And I wonder if we're getting to that point. Maybe it's a little bit of wishful thinking on my part, but what we're seeing now has got to be beyond the pale of what many Americans, and in fact, we're seeing it in the polling data. It's beyond the pale of what many Americans expected.
It feels like, whether it's the president going after Olympians or Bad Bunny, he's trying to use these moments as a chance to reignite the culture war. And I don't think people are up for it, or the fight he wants to have.
It has been sort of breaking down around him. We've done a lot of reporting at Notice about the sort of shadow diplomacy.
They give him $5 every time he says Notice.
Look, I mean, we're a startup news organization. Like MSNBC.
Every time Evan is on, his first answer is, we got a story of that on Notice right now. I just want to point it out.
It's Notice.com. Sign up today.
Oh my
NOTUS.
God.
No, anyway, I'm saying is like, but no, we've been doing a lot of reporting about this idea that, of shadow diplomacy and how important it has become lately. Because, America's sort of economic power did not come from statements like Trump made when he went to Davos. If it wasn't for me, you'd be speaking German, right? It's more of that sort of, we're not perfect, but we're really trying. Look at, you can try and be like us. And a lot of members of Congress now have been talking about how they have to sort of deal with foreign powers and allies and try to sort of calm their nerves. Well, now these Olympians are over there. They got booed when they walked in. And they're just sort of sitting there saying, like, look, we're a good country. Like we're doing our best. We're trying. You don't love everything. They are sort of being put on the front lines of diplomacy that the White House is not doing. And then what happens is they sort of get cut off by the president himself. And not to bring it back to what we were talking about before with Michigan, but this is exactly what's happening with Republicans who are running for office all over the country. They would like to be talking about the economy. They like to be talking about the things that they were able to achieve, sort of pushing back on some of these cultural issues that got them in power in the first place. And instead they're stuck trying to defend firing Jimmy Kimmel or this bridge thing or something else. This is a president that sort of does things on his own way and leaves other people to clean up the mess. It's very, very tough.
Pablo Torre finds out. We have 12 seconds.
At CNBC. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Donald Trump is mishandling this so bad, like, woke's coming back. I'm not kidding. Like, it's just, he is daring everybody to not respond as if the pendulum must swing the other way. And he's doing it, by the way, by demanding the curbing of, again, free speech. One of the things he ran on, right? You can say whatever the rudest thing is, and he's like, I'm going to post about the Obamas as apes over here, but for you, how dare you not serve as my secret personal police, Team USA? Like, it doesn't play. It just doesn't play.
You know, it plays a lawyer from Minnesota who's in the Olympics for curling. Everyone is staying put. When we come back, we're going to dig into Josh's big piece for The Atlantic, what he found out about AI and how it could affect the future. What's the worst that could happen? That is the question my dear friend Josh asked in the March cover story for The Atlantic, all about artificial intelligence and the future of work. Quote, AI is already transforming work, one delegated task at a time. If the transformation unfolds slowly enough and the economy adjusts quickly enough, the economists may be right. We will be fine or even better. But if AI triggers a rapid reorganization of work, compressing years of change into months, affecting roughly 40% of jobs worldwide, as the International Monetary Fund projects, the consequences will not stop at the economy. Our nightcap is still here. So you've thoroughly terrified us. What was your biggest takeaway? You spent months working on this, and you have a book coming up on this very subject.
Yeah. My takeaway is that there is no outcome that is predestined around AI and the future of employment. There's going to be disruption. That disruption could be good. We could manage it. But it's one of those issues that touches all aspects of a civilization, and the civilization that we have is letting us down. So it starts with the economists, who really are restrained by the data they have, and the data they have right now says there's no evidence that AI is yet affecting the labor market. And some economists say, well, we should plan in case it does, right? Some don't. The CEOs who are in charge of, the Fortune 100 CEOs who are in charge of a lot of America's workforce, were really sounding off about a year ago about, like philosopher kings about AI and their theories of what it was going to do. And then all of a sudden they stopped talking.
Why?
Because I think they realized from their PR teams, hey, when you talk about what might happen to America's workforce, it doesn't sound great, and you don't want to be associated with that, so maybe we should stop doing that. And so all at the same time, that stopped. I did talk to a lot of people on background, a lot of CEOs who say, look, I love my workforce. Wall Street is going to insist, after years and years of investment in AI, that I show some results, and if the AI magic miracle isn't here, the results will be cutting costs, and those costs will be cut now. And then on the sort of last leg of this little triathlon, you have politics. And so historically, when big disruption comes to the most important thing, American jobs, the right and the left get together and figure out, well, for our own political self-preservation, we better have a plan. And what I discovered when I talked to America's political class is that not only do they not have a plan, not only are they ignorant of AI, they actually think that the current federal plan of just let it go, it's going to work itself out, is fine, with two exceptions. On the left, Bernie Sanders, who's written a really ferocious report about what we should be demanding from companies and from government for the future of the American workforce. And on the right, the person who said to me multiple times, I agree with Bernie Sanders, with Steve Bannon. And so when you get those two political forces aligned, you're going to see change and disruption. And so what I came away with is, this is the most important issue in American culture that no one is talking about.
Mm-hmm. But everyone is worried about, right? So people are going to feverishly read this and try to get the answer to, is AI going to take my job? And is there an answer to it?
The answer is left with no change in the current environment, maybe, yeah. Because there is no one saying, what is our plan for the next 10 years? Now, what the economists will tell you is, like, we've had these big general purpose tech come before. Electricity is an example, right? Well, electricity took 40 years to disperse into the economy. And over that 40 years, jobs come, jobs go. The way AI is moving, if it takes 10 years or less, or God forbid 5 years, and people don't have the same need for labor, you can see really rapid spikes in unemployment. We already have lots of men who are not in the labor market. And a lot of those men changed American politics. So that's
change American politics how? Like Trump's original base?
Trump's original base. There's a sense of grievance from those men, not, by the way, without cause, that they've been left behind, that nobody cares about them, that nobody's giving them a role in American culture.
Is that why Steve Bannon and Bernie Sanders are aligned in this, ish?
I think they're aligned also because, and I'm going to revert back to a word that I know we have not used much, but I think they're very sincere. I think they have a huge concern that the American people, by and large, are going to be left behind, and that the people who currently own all the capital and are currently investing all the capital in AI are going to run everything.
There are two things that I learned recently about AI that kind of blew me away. The first was, I thought they were building all these data centers to meet the demand. That's not the primary reason they're building the data centers. They're building the data centers so that they can train AI to do the next thing that we don't know what it's going to do. The second thing I heard that blew me away was the reason why AI is killing coding is because they decided to go and teach AI to do coding first so that AI could duplicate itself and replicate itself and make itself better faster. I say these things because I'm involved with the economists that are trying to game out what this thing is going to do to our society and to our economy. The fact is, we don't know yet what it can do. We don't have any, what we've seen so far, I think is just a fraction of what it's going to be able to do. And the other thing I'm going to do is get AI to summarize his 8,000-word article.
There you go.
That's really good. You should read it
Only
all.
after you subscribe to The Atlantic and pay for it.
I do subscribe to
yes.
The Atlantic.
I wanted to ask, one of the things that's fascinating about your piece is that the tech companies themselves, AI companies, are pushing so hard for just a politics of like, just let us, leave us alone.
Yeah, of course.
Not that long ago, they were sort of asking for regulation.
BS.
But they were sort of talking about it. I wonder if you see that change, like this change is coming to America would also come to them. Do they have a political project beyond just kind of let us build out whatever we want?
No, look, I think that they were responsive to who is in power. Right? And so when Joe Biden delegated a lot of the regulation to Gina Raimondo, who's then the Secretary of Commerce, she's very smart. She understood what they were doing. She thought, hey, well, let's get in the room. Let's figure out how we can accelerate your growth, beat China at AI, while also preserving jobs. And she's in the piece and talks about that. But this is where government still leads. And so the fact that the government basically said, well, how about we have David Sachs oversee this? So, Bob will take it away.
But the thing, to summarize Josh's
make
article,
it quick. I'm out of time, so make it quick.
We need to regulate this, right? I mean, the unintended consequences, Steve, of letting the great men
We don't
believe
know
in the
what we're
great man
regulating,
theory.
Pablo. That's the point I was trying to make. We don't know what we're regulating.
But
That's
I think
a
we
baloney
have the
excuse. Figure it out.
contours.
I don't think that's right.
The economy is functioning as if this is going to be very valuable. Why are we treating it like it's an abstraction? I think we need to be very rigorous about these people who are saying, trust us, we are the great men of our time, we figured it out before. Don't you know how happy your cell phone makes you?
Government's not very good at predicting the future.
All right, we got to leave it there. Gentlemen, thank you all very much. We'll be right back.